Hello and welcome in the cage. I'm alongside the proud owner of the Ohio Combat Sports Academy, from whence we're broadcasting from, Dustin Ware. I am Milan Jordan. Big week here in Columbus. Dustin, Strikeforce returns to Nationwide Arena this weekend with a good card here this weekend. And the main event is for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. Just for the second time ever, the women's MMA headlining a Strikeforce card, and we're going to see it this weekend in Columbus. The champion Miesha Tate goes against Ronda Rousey. A lot of bad blood here, and I think it's really genuine. And Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, how do you see this breaking down?
You know, it's an interesting fight. They're both grapplers, just come from polar opposite sides of the grappling spectrum. I mean, Ronda Rousey is an Olympic athlete who placed third in the Beijing Olympic Games in judo, has been doing judo most of her life. And definitely brings a certain level of aggressiveness to her fights. I mean, in her 6 career fights, she spent less than about 4 minutes in the cage. And Miesha Tate, you have a fighter who's been wrestling her entire life. She's never was an Olympic caliber wrestler or anything like that, but she's a grinder. She definitely has years more experience in MMA. She was kind of the face of it for a while, as far as one of those fighters you kind of knew in female MMA. They definitely don't like each other. I'd say basically this is they don't respect each other.
Yeah.
And that's where I think makes it even more of an issue. I mean, you can have your Chael Sonnen, your Anderson Silvas, and people who don't like GSP and whatnot. They still respect the fighters. These two women do not respect each other, where they come from, their skill sets, anything about each other. So I think that's what makes it interesting, because there's a genuine dislike and a lack of respect for each other.
Yeah, and also one thing, Ronda Rousey, she's never had a fight go past the first round, whether on the professional or the amateur ranks. So some people are questioning maybe her cardio, but we aired the interview a few weeks ago. She's trained in judo. She's fought 6, 7 times a day. So
right.
She doesn't think that's going to be an issue. But in an MMA fight, we'll see if that plays a factor. But yeah, Miesha Tate, Ronda Rousey, again, for the women's title, should be very interesting. Now looking to be the face. The winner of this fight will become the face of women's MMA, with Cyborg out of the picture and Gina Carano out making movies. So very interesting there. Also on this card, we got KJ Noons going against Josh Thomson. KJ Noons, to me, Dustin, is one of these guys who seems to have a lot of potential, seems to have, he has a decent following, but just can't get over that hump, And KJ Noons, I mean, he puts on pretty decent fights, too. I mean, he's a guy who could take a beating as well. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, both guys really need a win here. How do you see this breaking down?
This is a case of, KJ Noons was at one time touting himself to be the first ever, wants to be a world champion MMA, boxer, and kickboxer. He thought he could hold 3 titles at one time. The problem with that is in MMA, you got to learn how to grapple.
Yeah.
And, he's shown that he's elusive. I wouldn't say he's necessarily hard to take down. He just avoids from being in that kind of altercation inside the cage, which is smart. He understands what his strengths are. I think in this particular matchup, it's going to be a little bit harder for him. He's got a guy who hits very hard, who's very game, very experienced, and probably has a really good idea of how to beat KJ Noons. So it'll be interesting to see if KJ can once again kind of implement his will of being the best boxer in the cage at the time. But if he's not able to do that and you get him on his back, I think that's where, he doesn't really see a lot of success, and I think that's where he could lose this fight.
Yeah, as of this taping, KJ Noons has not yet been medically cleared to fight on this card, but we're assuming that's going to be the case that we saw with Alistair Overeem recently. He ended up fighting. It just makes for a little extra drama before the fight here. So, right. And I think this should be an exciting fight between Noons and Thomson. Both guys like to get at it, go after it here. So I think the fans will definitely enjoy this fight as well. So also on this card, Paul Daley going against Kazuo Misaki in this fight. And Paul Daley, he's a guy who talks a lot of smack, doesn't always back it up. He's got heavy hands, but he gets, last couple times we've seen him, we saw him beat up Josh Koscheck after the bell. We saw him lose to Nick Diaz in spectacular fashion. Paul Daley desperately needs a win here. He
needs a win more or less because his character is so bad. I mean, so many people are looking.
Syntax. What kind of nickname is that?
It's explosive.
Okay.
It's a military grade explosive. So I get the nickname, but what I don't get is his character flaws. I mean, he's definitely, if he was in a draft, that'd be the one thing everyone would be talking about. Yeah. He's got all these character flaws. I definitely wouldn't want him to be a champion in my organization. I don't necessarily if I'd want him to be a pay-per-view draw of any kind, although he is polarizing. People seem to like that kind of, Dan Hardy is another one that people like, although I still think Dan Hardy is a much more respectable fighter. Yeah. Daley doesn't really care if he runs his mouth, if he gets into your skin, and it gets kind of old. I mean, you do it at first, you kind of let people know you don't care.
But back it up.
Right, but back it up. If you were knocking everyone out and just completely untouchable, that'd be great. But, you know, you've had fights where you've backed out of fights last minute, and, you know, your career has just been kind of ups and downs over the last few years. And so I think he definitely needs this fight. I think it's definitely a winnable fight for him. You know, I don't know what that does for him, even if he does stay around, you know, with that division in Strikeforce. But he's an exciting fighter. I mean, you got to give him credit. He can knock people out with either hand, and he does run his mouth. Although we haven't really heard much of him leading up to this fight, probably because he barely knows anything about his opponent. So,
yeah, that's probably the case, and also the fact that he hasn't had a whole lot of success lately as well. So that'll definitely quiet the trash talking a little bit there. So. As I mentioned, Strikeforce this week in Nationwide Arena. You'll be able to see it on Showtime. Also, we're going to see it here in town. It should be a great night at Nationwide Arena this weekend. And coming up, very special because of the fact that it is in Columbus. We have access to the fighters before the fight. So we have a couple of interviews with some of the participants in this fight. And hopefully, we're going to get a word in as well with Strikeforce President Scott Coker. Stick around for that. It's definitely going to be worth your while. Check us out also on Facebook and also on Twitter at In the Cage Show. You're already seeing us on YouTube. We appreciate that, but make sure you check us out and tell a friend and tell friends of friends. Tell people you don't like either, because you know what? We're all about it. We love all.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right. So coming up, interviews for some of the fighters and some of the big names from Strikeforce here in Columbus. All that coming up next in the Cage.
The Ohio Combat Sports Academy, Central Ohio's premier MMA training facility. Welcome back. In the Cage, special Strikeforce edition, where we're previewing this weekend's fight card at Nationwide Arena. The main event, you've got Miesha Tate going against Ronda Rousey for the Women's Bantamweight Championship.
Miesha, the animosity for this fight has been legendary. I mean, it's been a lot of trash talking back and forth, a lot of animosity there. You know, you guys have both said where that comes from and all that, but let me ask you this, and do you have any respect for Ronda, what she's done as a fighter at all, or do you have any kind of respect for her, you know, for her accomplishments?
I mean, it's obvious that I don't really care for her personality and the way that she's chosen to market. But I can say that, you know, what she has done in the cage has been good. You know, she's a year into her career. She's 4-0. I mean, that's all great and everything like that. And I mean, I think her accomplishments in the Olympics are also something, you know, very impressive. You know, but again, you know, it just goes back to who is she beating, you know, and I just don't think that she's on this level yet, you know what I mean? I think what she has done so far has been great. So, yeah.
Okay. And Ronda, obviously, you know, there's no love lost between you and Miesha. Do you have any respect for what she has done?
Yeah, she's a champ for a reason, but I don't really have much respect for the inconsistency of her comments. You know, one day she's like, oh yeah, I totally respect your Olympic medal, and another day she's like, oh yeah, it's not a legitimate medal. Or like one day she's like, oh, she's only getting the title shot because she's pretty, and then another day she's like, oh well, and she's only getting the title shot because she talked her way into it. And then before that, she's like, oh, well, it should just be about, you know, your record and just how you fight and nothing else. But then at the same time, she's got a picture of herself in booty shorts on her page, and then several months later, she changes her mind and says, oh, no, it's an entertainment business. So I don't have much respect for the inconsistency of her attitude. It seems to kind of reflect that she has a little bit of a weak personality. But the way that she fights, yeah, she's well-rounded. She's cool.
I think that she needs to maybe do her research, because a lot of the things she just misquoted me. The media has a great way of twisting things, and a lot of what she just said was completely inaccurate. I've been consistent about my comments with her, so maybe she should go watch some of my interviews.
I do watch your interviews. You don't watch mine, remember? That's what you said on HD. Or maybe you do. You want to change your mind on that too?
Sorry.
The Ohio Combat Sports Academy, Central Ohio's premier MMA training facility.
We're back in the cage outside Nationwide Arena in advance of this weekend's Strikeforce card. The main event for the Women's Bantamweight Championship. The champion, Miesha Tate, puts her title on the line against rowdy Ronda Rousey. And we had a chance to speak with both of the fighters in the main event. Joined now by Strikeforce Women's Bantamweight Champion Miesha Tate, who will go against Ronda Rousey this Saturday here at Nationwide Arena. And Miesha, I gotta ask you, how's training camp and how you feeling heading into this fight?
I feel great. I'm really, really glad that the time for talking is done. I'm glad that, the fight is right around the corner because it's been, not only highly anticipated for a lot of other people, but for myself. I've been really looking forward to this moment. I'm just really ready to get in there and rock it.
Yeah, and you mentioned talking, and yes, there certainly has been a lot of talking between the two of you for this fight. A lot of animosity, maybe even hatred. Where does that come from?
Well, I just think that, Ronda has been so self-absorbed and so self-righteous about this whole thing. It's really been very self-centered, and granted, I think that the trash talking and whatnot has created more eyes on the women's MMA. It's created more drama and this and that, and for that sake, I think that it's good, but I definitely don't believe that was Ronda's intention for, all of women's MMA to benefit. I think it was for Ronda to benefit because she talked her way into the title fight. She didn't do it for anybody else. She's pretty, pretty self-centered, like I said, about that, and, kind of thinks that we should kiss the ground that she walks on. So, to me, it's whatever. It's too late for her now. She can't back out of it now, so.
And obviously there's a lot of emotion involved. How difficult is it for you, and this is probably more than any other fight that you've had, where there's been a lot of emotion involved with the trash talking and the animosity, how difficult is it for you to be able to keep that in check, to keep your emotions in check and focus on a task at hand, retaining your belt?
Well, I mean, it's hard when I can't reach across the table and just strangle her or punch her, you know what I mean? Because I really want to. So for me to keep that in, that's a little bit difficult. But I think when come fight time and I'm able to release all that, it's not going to be a problem for me. I've always considered myself a pretty smart fighter. I'm going to pick the shots, and the ones that I pick, I'm going to make them count. I'm not going to go out there and let my emotions just consume me and go crazy and get caught in something stupid. You know what I mean? I'm definitely going to go out there and keep my cool. But, I have a lot of pent-up, emotion and aggression coming into this fight, and I don't even know exactly what to expect from myself because this is a new experience somewhat for me, having so much on the line and really just like my pride on the line too, honestly. It's not just about the fight, but I really don't like this girl and I cannot stand the thought of losing to her.
And with Ronda, none of her fights have lasted past, I think, 48 seconds as a professional or as an amateur in MMA. Do you feel the longer this fight goes, the more that's advantageous towards you? I mean, you've fought, 3-4 rounds before.
Yeah, well, I know I can do that, so I have no worries. And, for her, I think she thinks she can do that, but I'm telling you, it's different when you get out there and you spend the time in the cage and those bright lights are hot on you that whole time and there's cameras in your face and, this is such a big, high-intensity moment that I kind of think she's more of a sprint athlete, honestly, and I think when she goes out there, she looks pretty damn desperate. She doesn't want to be exposed. She goes out there, she tries to take the person down as quick as possible and get the submission as quick as possible, and I don't think that's because she necessarily thinks that that's great. I think it's because she doesn't want to be exposed in any other areas, so for me, the longer the fight goes, I'm totally fine with that. If I can finish it quickly, I'll be looking to do that too, though.
Yeah, and how do you see this fight playing out come Saturday night?
I see her coming out probably real strong, the first couple minutes of the first round, maybe having a little bit left in the second round if it makes it that far. And then after that, I think that she's going to start doubting herself. I think definitely when she can't do what she's been doing to everyone else, and be so successful as she has been, she's going to start to wonder why, and she's going to start to doubt herself. And once you get that little seed of doubt in you, it can spread like cancer.
Yeah, and you win this fight, and now we've talked before about Cyborg being out of the picture for a while and all that. Now, the two of you are the face of women's MMA. You win this fight, you will be the face of women's MMA. I mean, talk about all that implies and all that goes with that.
Well, that title is really a huge honor. I mean, it's not something that I take lightly. If someone refers to me as the face of women's MMA, I'm really humbled and honored. I'm like, wow, that's an amazing accomplishment, and I worked so hard that, it feels right for me, and I want to try to be the best role model I know how. I'm not perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, and it's been trial and error, and I've learned a lot of things along the way, but I think that how I became a champion was tried and true, and it was right. I definitely never talked my way into the title fight. I never tried to play on the looks that I deserve more because of that. I did. I beat 2 girls in one night to become the #1 contender, and I submitted a girl who had never been submitted in her 10-plus year career. Most of her wins by submission, so it's definitely not a fluke that I'm here, and I want to show that.
Great. Well, Miesha, thanks a lot for your time. Good luck Saturday.
Thank you.
All right, Miesha Tate putting her Strikeforce women's bantamweight title on the line this Saturday night against Ronda Rousey. Joined now by the challenger for this Saturday's main event at Strikeforce. We're talking with Ronda Rousey, who will go up against Strikeforce women's bantamweight champion Miesha Tate. And Ronda, let me ask you first, how's training camp been going? How are you feeling heading into this fight?
Training camp's gone great. I've had the best training camp my whole career. No injuries. My weight cut has been pretty much flawless. I could make weight tonight if I wanted to, but we're going to take our time. I've been drinking as much water as possible, eating every day. God, is he really wearing skeletos? Miesha Tate's boyfriend's wearing skeletos right now. Yeah, that's funny. What else?
Oh,
yeah, it's good. Everything's all good. I feel great.
Well, talk about the weight cut, because this is your first fight at 135. Was it a huge challenge for you to get down to 135?
No, it wasn't. We did everything very, slow. We've been planning this out like weeks in advance. I've been pretty much doing most of my training camp at only 6 pounds over because I wanted to be able to fight and spar and lift and do everything. I've been lifting the same amount of weight, doing even more sparring, everything else more at a lighter weight. I feel like just with less weight on me, my joints are better. I feel faster. I feel like my endurance is that much better. It's just, it's a great fit for me. So I'm stoked.
Cool. And during this camp, you trained with Nick Diaz, or I know you have trained with Nick Diaz in the past. I wasn't for this. Talk about how that went, and I'm sure you saw a different Nick Diaz than what the public sees.
Everyone loves to ask me about this. Why is everyone so obsessed with this? Yes, we trained one day. He's fabulous. He's very sweet, very soft-spoken. I really want to come train with them. I mean, him and his brother have been shooting me and Manny texts back and forth about coming down there, and we've been talking about going up there, but I swear to God that my first call after this fight is I'm going to call him up and be like, I'm coming, I'm going to schedule this, but I didn't want to do it, before I didn't want to think about the next fight until I'm done with this one. So, yeah, it was a great experience, and I really want to learn some more from them, and I'm going to probably give them a call on Saturday night.
And let's talk about this fight with Miesha Tate. I know we've talked about this before, where there's a lot of, hatred. Probably maybe I don't know if that's an appropriate word between the two of you. And let's talk about where that comes from. Where from your side there? I mean, you're the challenger. Yeah, you're the favorite in this fight. But also talk about some of the the animosity towards Miesha, where that comes from.
Well, hate is a very strong word, and I wouldn't use that term. Yeah, okay, I would say dislike, but I mean, I kind of poked and prodded her until, she started not liking me, so I understand why she doesn't like me, but, whatever. After this fight, and we actually throw it down and all that, I considered it resolved, but I'm sure she's still going to be butthurt about this for a long time, because not only did I talk a bunch of game up before I beat her up, but then I beat her up in style in front of a lot of people. I wouldn't like anyone like that.
And a lot of times people trash talk to get into their opponent's heads. Do you think you've gotten into her head?
Oh, definitely. Every single time there's any kind of debate, I totally own her. I mean, and even in the betting odds, I totally own her, and I got more fans than her. I mean, she started Twitter years ago. I started it 8 months ago. I pretty much almost have as many followers than her. I think it's just, it's got to be a little bit intimidating, and that she's been doing this a long time, and I just kind of showed up in August and be like, hey, what's up? No, my turn. I mean, a lot of girls don't like competition,
And we've talked about this before, and I think you gave me a really interesting answer. If you don't mind answering this question for me again. Your fights as an amateur and as a pro, none has lasted, I think, longer than 48 seconds of the first round. Some people question your cardio and your stamina, not so much the fact that they don't think you have it, but because it hasn't been seen or seen any kind of adversity. But yet you gave me a really interesting answer before. Talk about how you think cardio is not going to be an issue for you the longer this fight goes.
Oh, well, when I did judo, my cardio was my biggest asset. You know, I always, excuse me, hunger burp. It's just like my stomach going, nothing. um, but no, that was always my strength in judo. Was I always kept that same pace all the time. And Ryoko Tamura, who is one of the best known judo players, she always said that you need to fight every 5 seconds of the match, like it's the last 5 seconds of the match. And I always embraced that, you know. And being American, the referees never really liked me that much. When I first started doing judo, my mom told me, she said, if you don't attack every 5 seconds, they give you a penalty. And it was a lie. I found out later, but I always fought like that. And when they added golden score, you know, that is if you just know score after 5 minutes, to add another 5 minutes. I was just always so excited about that, you know. And even before I did judo, I was a swimmer. You know, I was on the junior Olympic swimming team and was placing in the states and all that. I've been an athlete my entire life. You know, endurance is not the least bit of my problems. It's my biggest advantage. And just because people haven't seen it doesn't mean it isn't there. You know, it's just like saying like, okay, there's no other side to the moon. It's just like a disc, you know. Like, of course it's there, you know, but just because you don't see it doesn't mean it isn't there.
That being said, this Saturday, how do you see the fight playing out? Are you looking to end this quickly like you have your other fights, or are you expecting for this fight to go a while?
I expect every fight to be an all-out 5-round war, and that's what I train for. But I always aim to finish it as soon as possible. You know, it's better to, what did my Uncle Craig always say? It's better to have what you don't need than need what you don't have. You know, so we always over-prepare, and of course I'll go for the first opening I see, and it could be in the first round, could be in the 5th one.
And this fight, you know, the trash talking back and forth, you know, it's brought up a lot of hype for this fight, a lot of more interest in this fight. You win Saturday night, you would be the face of women's MMA. And just talk about what that would mean, and is that something, I guess, for lack of a better term, something you're prepared for?
Well, I think that Gina still is the face of women's MMA. She's the one going out and making movies and making people that don't know what women's MMA is aware of it. You know, like I feel like that just within the girls competing right now, I would become the most prominent one known to the MMA fans. But I think that Gina's the one still, you know, doing the work and representing us the most. But you know what? It'll be a big responsibility, but I'm ready for that. You know, I'm fine.
And one last kind of off the wall question here. And this was brought up during the press conference where talking about, you know, the attractiveness, the sex appeal of this fight between you and Miesha. A lot of people might be tuning in because of how you guys look. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say you're at the grocery store or you're somewhere with your friends and a guy goes up and hits on you and you don't want him to and he keeps going on. Do you kick his ass? Do you break his arm?
No, because I got jumped by a bunch of guys, beat them up, and they sued me for assault. There's no way that I can get in a fight that I'm not going to pay for it. You know, I've regretted every fight that I've gotten into. I've never lost a fight, but it's never been worth it, you know. So usually in a situation like that, I would probably, if they kept being persistent, you know, I would either say something and be like, yo, if you don't get away from me, I'm going to have to do something about it. I feel threatened right now, and if I feel threatened, then I can tell the police that this is self-defense. You know, I will preface it with like, because last time I got into a fight, I was like, look, don't let me go, I'm going to have to do something about it. Like, that was just it. So I will preface it with some sort of comment that I can bring up in court and then beat them up.
Excellent. All right, well, good. Ronda, congratulations. Thanks for taking the time with us, and good luck Saturday. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
The Ohio Combat Sports Academy, Central Ohio's premier MMA training facility.
The co-main event for Strikeforce this weekend is a lightweight bout between Josh the Punk Thomson and KJ Nunes. We had a chance to talk to them both at the Strikeforce pre-fight press conference. Joined now by Josh the Punk Thomson, who will fight KJ Nunes this Saturday night at Strikeforce in Columbus. And Josh, let me ask you first and foremost, how's training camp been going? How are you feeling heading into this fight?
You know, training went well. I mean, I feel like I could have done a little bit more in training, but, you know, my trainers, we were trying to cut back my training for this fight to avoid injury. And My teammates have told me that I feel strong, I feel good, I feel really, I feel better than I have my last 3 or 4 camps. So if that's any indication, then I guess I should have a great fight. So we'll find out. It's just, it's a big fight, and KJ's a great fighter, and I'm interested. It's got me a little amped up, so I'm ready to go.
Excellent, and I know I asked you this during the press conference, but you wouldn't mind me, answering this again. It's been a while since you fought. It'll be going on 14 months since you last fought, and a little bit longer since you fought in Strikeforce. How much of a concern is cage rust for you, and how do you kind of, I guess, overcome that or make sure that's not an issue for you?
Yeah, realistically, I try not to think about the cage rush. It will probably be a little bit evident, but as long as I'm out there pushing the pace and really getting in his grill and letting him know that I'm there to fight, I don't think you'll notice a whole lot of cage rush. It really will come down to whether I can put my combinations together. I think you saw in the second Gilbert fight after that 15-month layoff, I came out and I was more of a brawler, and it cost me the fight. In the first fight with Gilbert, if you notice, I threw a lot of straight punches, got to the clinch real well, kneed really well. So that being said, I got away from during that 15 months of the second Gilbert fight, I got away from the technique. So in this fight camp, when I've been out for 15 months, I've tried to focus on getting back to my techniques, my knee, my push kicking, my kicks a little bit more, and getting more into the clinch and making sure I could throw some more elbows and stuff. So focusing more on the techniques and not so much on trying to do more cardiovascular and plyometric style stuff.
Josh, you're more well-rounded, but grappling is your bread and butter, basically. And KJ, he's a striker. So this is a classic striker versus grappler match. Needless to say, you want this on the ground?
I mean, like I said, it doesn't really matter where it goes, to be honest. I think everyone understands I'm a pretty well-rounded fighter. I can stuff your takedown. I can take you down. I can grapple you. I can stand with you. It really just depends on what he gives me. I think with, the opportunity will present itself. Let me just tell you, I'm not going to go out there and work really hard for the takedown. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. I'm just not that guy to hang on the leg and, do or die. If I lose this takedown, I'm going to lose the fight. That's a bunch of crap because, I can fight. So that's the one thing I've prided myself on is that, I can mix it up. I got good stand-up, and I feel like I've got a really good wrestling and good grappling. So I think if you put it all together, I think that's me.
And if you defeat KJ Nunes this Saturday, more than likely you'll get a title shot at Gilbert Melendez to complete the trilogy. Just talk about that, man. That's your fights with him before have been epic.
Yeah, see, I don't have to talk about it. Everywhere I go, people talk about it. I can't go anywhere in San Jose without people stopping me on the street, and they don't even know when I fought last. They just know, man, I saw your last fight. And to them, my last fight was when I fought Gilbert. And it's I'm like, dude, I fought 3 times since then. They're like, all we care about is the Gilbert fight. All they do is ask me about the Gil fight. So it's funny. And then, but I can't go anywhere without people asking me about the fight. It will be nice to finally close that chapter. But, like I said, I got to get past KJ first, and I'm not looking past him at all, and I think it's going to be a tougher fight than people think, and I'm definitely going to get the best KJ that I think this sport's seen. I think since he probably started fighting, or just period, I'm going to get the best KJ.
And finally, may I ask you how you see this fight playing out come Saturday?
I see it playing out, in all different ways, to be honest. I've played every scenario in my head, where, just standing, I've even played out sometimes where I have maybe lost the fight. You do think about it like, man, I don't want my family to see me lose, and you play it out in your head. But the biggest thing is you got to focus. I played that out of my head, okay, losing, but then I also played out of my head, okay, how do I avoid that? How do I avoid, those little things happening? And like I said, all the interviews actually makes me think about it a lot more and how I'm going to play this fight and how it's all going to go. We've implemented the game plan during training camp. We know what we got to do. And, I see it playing out is, like I said, not working hard for takedowns. If they're there, take them. If they're not, don't work hard for them. Being comfortable in the clinch, definitely being comfortable in the clinch is going to be huge. And then on top of that as well is, throwing straight punches. He throws a lot of looping punches. So, beating him to the punch, getting to his chin before he gets to mine. That's the biggest thing, and really opening up on the knees and the elbows.
And Josh, one last thing here. You're in the co-main event, the main event, 2 ladies going back at a big cat fight, which someone reiterated during the press conference, but we won't mention your name. But anyway, the huge cat fight there, and the fact that how much are you looking, as a fan and as a fighter, how much are you looking forward to seeing Miesha Tate go at it with Ronda Rousey, finally put the talking to rest?
The sad thing is since I am the co-main event, I won't be able to watch the fight. I'll be in the back doing medicals, getting paid, getting the doctor to look at me. So I'm going to miss probably at least the first 3 rounds. you know, and so it's gonna be one of those fights where, you know, you want to see, but I won't have the opportunity probably to catch it. So, but I mean, honestly, I think the fans are gonna get a good fight out of this one. It's gonna be a grinder. I think there's gonna be in the first round's gonna present a lot of action. I think they're gonna come out no love lost, and they're gonna go at each other. The key is to find out who has the tank to go 5. You know, if the submissions can't be done in the first round or 2. What's going to happen? You know, does Ronda, since she hasn't been that long, does she have a gas tank to go 5? And Miesha, can she avoid, you know, the first 2 rounds of maybe a submission onslaught? Who knows? You don't really know. I really couldn't tell you. And I think that's what the great part about this fight is, the mystery of this fight. People want to see because they don't know what the result will be.
Josh, thanks a lot for your time. Good luck this Saturday.
Thomson. And John and Bond's yogurt, baby, and Chico.
Family business.
Family, baby.
All right, joined now by KJ Nunes, who will be fighting Josh the Punk Thomson this Saturday. KJ, let me ask you first, how was training camp? How are you feeling heading into this fight?
I feel great, man. It's probably one of the best training camps I've had, so I'm really excited and prepared for this fight. I'm excited to be fighting here in Ohio.
And fighting Josh, you know, he hasn't fought in over a year. At this point, it'll be going on 14 months. You fight every few months, you know, and you put on very entertaining fights as well. Do you feel like you have a huge advantage in that sense of where it might take him a little while to kind of get back in that cage rhythm there, and you have an advantage early on?
I feel like from my experience in the past of being, you know, off from injuries or off from you know, not fighting, it has hurt myself. And actually, I'm coming off of a fight, so that's always been good for me. Every time I'm right after a fight, I've been pretty successful. So I think it will affect him a little bit, but we'll kind of see when we get in the ring kind of how it happens.
And give us a scouting report on Josh Thomson. I mean, you like to stand and bang. He likes to go on the ground. There's the classic grappler versus striker matchup, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. You know, he's very well-rounded. He actually I got some great battles of standing up. He's, you know, well all around. But I think Saturday night, that's probably in my career I'm going to be the most well-prepared for being an all-around better fighter myself, training in the gym. So I'm going to be ready for whatever he throws at me. And I think he's going to be probably surprised, because anything I do is probably going to be something new.
And you're fighting this fight, of course, at lightweight. You've also fought at 170. Do you feel more comfortable at 155 than 170? Do you feel kind of comfortable going back and forth?
No, you know, I've only actually fought 170 one time for the title. It was just a special match with, you know, Nick, and my weight's 155. So I'm back down here, and it's good.
And also with this fight on Saturday, with the win, likely title shot against Gilbert Melendez. Is that what, you know, are you looking forward to something like that? I mean, how much is that even creeping in your mind during training?
You know, it hasn't really, because I just want to win this fight so bad. You know, I mean, I can't look past this fight. I got to get past Josh first, and we'll just see where the cards fall after this.
And lastly, you are also a pro boxer as well. And I know the old Strikeforce deal, you're allowed to go back and forth, and now I know you can't. You're just strictly MMA. But how much has boxing helped your MMA game, or has it taken away a little bit, like as far as helping your boxing aspect of MMA, but has it taken away a little bit from maybe some of the other aspects as well? Or just talk about how much of an impact that has had on your career.
Well, I think it's definitely two different sports, but it's definitely helped me totally. That's kind of what I've known for, and that's what put me into MMA, was the boxing. So you can't get away from your basics, just like, you know, someone like Josh is a good wrestler. You know, that's what got him into probably MMA or whatever else he does. But that's my meat and potatoes, you know, and it's definitely helped me out. And you just got to get better as a fighter and get better at the other things. So, yeah, I mean, it's helped me a lot.
And lastly, how do you see this fight playing out come Saturday night?
Saturday night, my hand will definitely be raised by the end of the fight.
You want to talk about what happens before that?
Yeah, no, just my hand will be raised after the fight.
All right, KJ, thanks a lot. Appreciate your time. Good luck Saturday.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that'll do it for this week's show. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and on Twitter at In the Cage Show. Next week, Dustin and I will be back in studio to recap this weekend's Strikeforce fight card. Enjoy the weekend. Also, we'll look back at the UFC's venture in Australia in the first ever flyweight tournament in the UFC. And we'll talk about some other regional happenings around the world of MMA. Hope you enjoyed this week's show. I'm Milan Jordan. Thanks for watching In the Cage.